Hi, everyone. It's Jonathan again from Precursive. Welcome along to the next in our podcast series. And I'm delighted to welcome Jay Nathan from Customer Imperative. Say hi, Jay.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Thanks for joining us. Last time I saw you, you were doing a great video in the woods, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that woods near your house?
It is. It's right at the end of my street, and actually, it looked a lot more like the woods than it actually is. So
yeah, it looked like you had
I was sitting on a park bench.
It looked like you had a standing desk in the middle of the woods. It was great. Well, thanks.
That's a good idea, though.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So to kick off this conversation, Jay, what I've been doing is, as you're aware, is interviewing lots of different practitioners, business owners, executives, and people who operate in the customer success and tech industry, really about kind of some of the trends and issues that we're all seeing. Just by way of introduction, do you mind, for those of us that don't know, tell us a little bit about your company and yourself and your role there, and indeed your background prior to setting.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So, just real quickly, Customer Imperative, we're a consulting firm, and we work with software companies. Most of our work is with B2B SaaS companies, helping them develop and deploy their customer success strategy. So we help people move more quickly, right? That's the most pressing thing that you can do in a software company is move quickly, make decisions, and get processes in place so that you can scale. And it's really important, especially now, to be doing that around your customers. So started the company about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I ran customer success for a couple of companies. And when I say customer success, I mean support, services, training, and customer success managers. So like maybe you call that the whole thing. Yeah. And then prior to that, I spent some time at a software company called Blackbaud. I live in Charleston, South Carolina in the United States. And Blackbaud is a software and services company that focuses on the nonprofit sector. And so I ran a large consulting team there for several years, did a lot of work supporting the sales team in that role. And then also spent some time in product management there. So I've got sort of this varied background, but most of my career has been spent in the software industry. So
cool, wonderful. So a nice blend and range of experience. I think one of the things we'll talk about later is how these worlds of commercial world, success, professional services, and support are all actually moving a lot closer together. I think so. No, that's cool. So I mean, obviously, we're speaking to each other from home, and we're operating in what I keep calling the new remote reality. So, what kinds of changes have you seen customers making to adjust to working in this remote environment in the world of CS?
Yeah, my company's always been remote, and I've always worked in companies that were very remote friendly. So it's been a little bit surprising to be working with our clients and see the massive shift that it's caused for them. The first thing that they had to do was figure out Zoom, right? And how to make sure everybody had an account and, that kind of thing. But, even over the past, 6 or 8 weeks, I've heard, my customers say things like, wow, yeah, like, now that we've got this video capability, like we could actually do more of this, right? And so I think it's been really interesting to me to learn just how fast and to watch how fast people have adjusted to this, and the fact that it is a big adjustment to a lot of people. It might not have seemed that way to all of us, but it's been a big adjustment, and I can only imagine doing it with hundreds or even thousands of people. I mean, having your camera on for a meeting is to me, it's not negotiable anymore. It's part of what you need to do. And you need to be ready for that. And, everything that comes along with that, meeting other family members, seeing the mess in the background.
You've met mine already, haven't you? Today?
I know. It was awesome to meet Frank just a little while ago.
He'll be back.
Good.
And so I think, one comment on what you just said, I think it is interesting seeing the speed of adoption. I think people are also, though, seeing the speed of some of the challenges that are coming with that. I've, in a number of these interviews, one of the people that I interviewed was a head of customer success for a SaaS business. And his comment was like his brain felt like mush because he was doing so many back-to-back conversations. And I think, and we even found that internally in our business, and we were predominantly remote anyway. So I think having that release valve, and companies are now learning, well, actually, hold on, we've got to try and think about how we balance this, technology with it actually causing people to be overworked. And I think that kind of leads me into the next piece, which is what do you think some of the challenges are now in this environment for CS teams and how they negotiate this environment?
Yeah. Well, so for CS teams, I don't know that it's a whole lot different for CS teams than it is for everybody in general, but there's, like you just mentioned, there's a name for that. It's called Zoom fatigue now.
Yeah.
Right. And just having, it's evidently a thing. But I think the trickier thing that comes along with that, which you sort of alluded to there, is that I just read this the other day, people are working 2 to 3 hours more per day than they were before. Now they're not commuting, which is probably a trade-off, but at some point that becomes unhealthy because we probably were already working long days to begin with. So, I think that's a challenge that we all as leaders need to be aware of for our organizations. In particular on CS, I think, there's a couple of different classes of companies out there. If you're more of an enterprise SaaS kind of shop, meaning you sell to larger clients, then you may be accustomed to having more face-to-face in-person meetings with your clients than doing things over the phone. But, I think people are learning that you can do these things virtually and still make a ton of progress, right? And it helps that everybody is in the same situation, right? There's not a group sitting in a conference room somewhere around a table and then a handful of people on the phone. Everybody's on the phone, right? So when it goes back to hopefully it doesn't ever go back to the the old normal. But when it does, then I think we have to take that into account. On the low touch side of things, from an engagement model perspective, I think it's probably helped because, like we just talked about, people are now used to using their cameras. They're used to connecting they're getting used to connecting on a more human to human level remotely. But I think the challenges for CS teams there, we've heard stories of both customers being more receptive to engaging right now. And then we've obviously heard of stories where some customers can't engage right now, right? And so we're actually having a harder time getting in touch and providing value and that kind of thing. So I think it's very industry dependent in terms of the industry that you serve within your company.
Yeah, 100%. I think any business that isn't doing a pretty rigorous analysis on the industries that their customers operate in, or indeed the proportion of business that comes from specific industries, is will be missing a trick.
You're behind the eight ball. Behind the eight ball, you haven't done it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if we I want to switch to like the role of CS in general, and a little bit around kind of how you've seen this evolve and where you see it going in the future. As you've described, you've been in this area and industry a long time. I think when I started originally working in professional services, we had a subscription business as well. CS was called account management, and that's a bit of an old joke in the CS community. But how has the role of customer success evolved over the last years for you? What are some of the big changes you've seen in this evolution?
Yeah. I think maybe the most pronounced change over the past 5 years is that we have gone from talking about customer success as a predominantly an adoption thing to it being much more of an impactful thing where we talk about positive customer outcomes, right? And there's a big difference there because adoption doesn't always equate to outcomes. I worked in an HR tech company years ago that once we deployed the software, everybody had to use it until the customer left, and then they went and had to use something else, right? If they left. That's compulsory. Adoption is going to happen either way in that situation. So doesn't mean they're happy, doesn't mean they like to use it, doesn't mean they're getting value out of it. It may actually be detracting value from their day
Yeah.
because it's harder for them to work in that software. Not that it was in that case, but the point is that I think the big shift is in moving from this idea of adoption of software to like, what is the outcome of the usage or the partnership with that software company?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've seen similar shift on your end, but that's probably the most pronounced shift that I've seen over the past 5 years.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, our platform, part of our customer base is typically professional services teams or consultancy businesses where tracking time, like doing a timesheet, is uh, a much disliked compulsory part of the job. And I think one of the things that we learned was, make that bit that everyone hates in their daily lives as easy as possible. But it's interesting where you talk about the role of CS in compulsory versus maybe, in areas where it's less forced on you, right? So that's a very interesting point of view. And now, at this point in time, we were talking about this just before we started. Like, I've never heard, as I said, I think customer success is the new sales, as I told you.
Yep.
How in 2020 and beyond, given everything that's changed, what do you see the future of CS being now?
Well, I guess one of the other challenges that I think we have in the CS community is that a lot of CS teams were born out of support teams. Sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, they were born out of account management and sales teams. And I actually think customer success is something different than both of those. It's more akin to consulting than it is to sales and support, although there are elements of all three of those things in the role. So, my hope there have been a lot of layoffs. A lot of teams are being cut across the board. And that's independent of what department that people are part of. But I think we've also seen a big impact in the customer success community. My theory on that is that we have a lot of teams that are not, we have a lot of customer success teams that haven't really proven their value beyond white glove support for our customers and maybe this idea of adoption. And so my hope in 2020 and beyond is we've sort of cut some of that. Now, can we really get focused on what customer success needs to be, which is value creation engine for our customers first, and by extension, our companies. And that means us playing a more proactive consultative role with our clients, either one by one in the enterprise SaaS world or one to many in the SMB SaaS world, but provide value at scale, right? Provide change management at scale. And then, actually show the value of that effort on the growth of the customers and therefore the growth of the business. So very unfortunate that people are being laid off. I hate that. But I do hope that we can, it helps us sort of accelerate where we wanted this thing to go anyway, which is like, let's make it a true value lever for the business. If I could keep on rambling here for a minute, I think the other thing that's always on my mind, and hopefully this is an opportunity to rally around it, is this idea that customer success is, well, we have a department called customer success. Customer success is a broad company initiative, and it's a way of operating our business, right? It's a way of, it's how we have product and engineering and marketing and sales and services and account management and customer success management and support all lined up, saying the same thing, one conversation with our client, one consistent customer journey, one value proposition, and everybody's aligned around that. I think that is the true, that's the outcome that we need as software companies, right? We need to create that kind of cohesiveness across our businesses. And that's what we call lowercase customer success, right? Because it's just how we operate. So I think it's another opportunity that we have now uniquely, since everybody's focused on this.
Yeah, I think there's two very interesting pieces of insight from what you've just said. Like, one is, I've always thought about CS. I mean, I don't come from a software background originally. I come from a services background. And so, when I came into this area, one of the things that I saw in this, about it that I thought it wasn't where it should be, is like success for me is about advisory. And so it's interesting that you use the word like it's more akin to consultancy, because I agree 100% with that. It's advising your customer on how they should be thinking about either managing their business more effectively, being more efficient, growing, using your product or service, right? Some of it is about advising them on how to do something the right way, how to use your product the right way, what not to do. So I think that advisory element is really important. The challenge that a lot of businesses face, I think, is that stuff sometimes is under the hood is broken. So like you say, they are that white glove support element because maybe the particular product or services is not, creating the value that is hoped for whatever reason.
Yep.
I think that's very insightful what you just said there on the consulting piece. And the other thing is, I think it's the tie that binds, right? It is the thread that runs through the business, because ultimately, it's a very simple message. It's like, we're here to make our customers successful. It's why the strapline of Precursive is make every customer a success story, right? It's one of our things that we preach, because fundamentally that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make every customer as successful as possible, and in turn make their customers successful. So I think those two things, like one, it's not just a thing, it's a strategy. It ties everything together. And two, you've got to think about it from a consultancy lens is very good. And what are some examples of, so turning to what we try and do in these things is have a little bit of like more strategic and a little bit of what more tactical frontline pieces. So thinking about some of the plays that you've seen that play an important role in driving that success. What are some examples of good customer success plays or playbooks that others could learn from who are listening in today?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I love getting tactical with these things because I think there's a lot of, big thoughts around this. Yeah. But like, how do we actually do it? Yeah. One of the things that we are doing with almost all of our clients at this point is helping them implement something we call a joint success plan. And this is nothing new, right? But it's not an account plan. It's a plan that you build together with your customer to identify the objectives that they have, the business objectives, right? Not necessarily the adoption objectives.
Yep.
And then how we're going to measure those together jointly. And then the key steps that we have to take to get there and the key risks. It's very simple, right? And then you coming from a consulting background, you probably recognize that as just almost a core fundamental engagement management, project management kind of mindset. But so we implement a very simple joint success plan with almost all of our clients. And the value in that is that it actually helps them think more deeply. Back to the example we were talking about a minute ago, I was working with one of my clients just this week, and who we were going through one of the success plans that they had created for one of their larger customers. And we identified a challenge that was going to be a barrier to basically having them meet their objectives for the software, right? So they want to make some change in a very key metric in their business, but unless they can get the field people, in this case, to make a change in the way that they behave and the way that they act, then they weren't going to be able to achieve that metric. That has nothing to do with software. It had everything to do with people and change management. And the action that we decided to take as a result of that, going through that exercise and mapping that out, was to connect them with another customer who had done that very successfully, to connect the other customer with that person so they could have a conversation about that specific problem that needed to be solved, which had nothing to do with software. So joint success plans can be a very powerful tool to get you to think at a layer deeper. Couple of other things, I think we're going to talk about onboarding a little bit, but having a good game plan for onboarding is almost a no-brainer. We've added some very simple things into what we're doing. Having a welcome kit that you can even start the onboarding process before deal closes to help accelerate it. Having an initial success plan that's sort of a joint project between the account rep and the customer success manager that's going to be on that account. There are a number of things that you can do from a customer onboarding perspective that I think are really powerful. And then probably the third thing, which we're starting to push more and more with our clients, is relationship tracking.
Yep.
So it's, I have a good buddy named Ziv Pellet. He works for
Yeah,
a company
yeah,
called
yeah. I was
AppsFlyer.
speaking to him. Yeah, I was speaking to him yesterday. He showed
Oh,
me
good.
all. He showed me this stuff that he's got on this, but I want to hear it. It's great.
Yeah. I
Great.
mean, he talks about, uh, and I love the way he talks about it, but we're selling to companies, but we're actually selling to humans, right?
Yeah,
This is a human to human thing. And so having those relationships, understanding who our key contacts are at these, with these customers, and, being able to keep track of the individual relationships that make up a business partnership is super important. And so
yeah.
getting that data down into a system where we can track it and keep track of where we're, where we're on track and on target with our relationships versus not is another really powerful playbook. It's basic, but a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
companies
no,
are doing it.
that's so funny. I was literally talking to him yesterday morning, and he showed me this. He was like, "I've got this new thing. I think it's newish," and I was like, "That makes total sense," because it's like you've then got a relationship history across all of your accounts.
Exactly.
It's not just some of the the risk. All of the other data points. It's like that. It's that relationship equity that you have. It was super interesting. That's so funny. He's great.
Good
Cool.
guy.
So
Yeah.
so I think from those things, I love the joint success plans. I mean, I'm for my sins. I'm previously a salesperson, and a big thing in sales is around having those mutual plans when you're looking to close deals. Is like having mutual agreement and steps in place with your customer. And there's no reason why that shouldn't stop. Why that should stop at the end of a sales cycle. So that makes sense in throughout the customer journey, which leads us nicely onto the customer journey, as if by magic. We didn't plan this, but let's just talk about like what are for those that might be putting in place like a process, or for those that have got like a customer journey mapped out. What do you think are the core components of that customer journey, and why is each, and what would you say is the importance of each stage?
Yeah. We use something we call the battle plan, the customer success battle plan. And really that is it's a visual representation of the journey that our customers are going on with us. First of all, though, we have to realize that our customers are on a journey that's independent from us.
Yeah.
Right. That's a maturity. They're maturing, they're growing their business. They're automating, they're digitizing, whatever the case may be. But in terms of our customer journey, the way we think about it is first onboarding, enablement, adoption, and then we think about expansion, right? Expansion and growth within that customer and their growth with us. And then we think about renewal and then sort of a cyclical thing from there.
Yeah.
Some of the key moments. So getting to the point, and some of this is going to be old hat for many of your listeners, but getting to the point where we're providing value quickly. The first value that we provide is an often overlooked customer journey key moment, because the quicker you can provide some value, the more trust you're going to have from your customer. So that comes with knowing what they need and what their desired outcomes are from the sales process, having a clean transition, and then having a quick way to get there with your solution. Other than that, the biggest areas that we tend to focus on in the customer journey are where there are transitions between teams. So going from sales to onboarding, whether you have an implementation team that's separate from your customer success team or not, that is a transition. And I call them transitions, not handoffs, right? Because we're transitioning that relationship. So having that bed of information and data and knowledge around who that customer is, what their needs are, it's all important so that we don't ask our customers the same things over and over, like you alluded to earlier. Same thing with coming out of an implementation process into support, right? A lot of times it's jarring for a customer because they were getting almost this white glove service. People were answering the phone when they called. They had a direct point of contact. And now they're in the nameless, faceless support queue, right? So how do
Yep.
we make that transition smooth on them? How do we arm our support team with information about that customer and their implementations so that they can actually serve the customer at a level where they have knowledge when that customer calls of
Yep.
what's going on. And then, I think the other key moment that we sort of treat as a discrete moment in time that maybe we have to think about a little differently is renewal,
Mm.
because what we should be focusing on much earlier in the life cycle or the journey with us
Yep.
is the value that we're creating, validating it, and doing early check-ins on the renewal. Don't treat the renewal like a thing that happens 90 days before it's due,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We're really working on that all year long. So anyway, those are some of the bigger things. Whenever we introduce new people in and out of a relationship for any reason, I think
Yep.
it's a critical moment that we have to really get right. And we use systems, we use processes, and we use, people who are willing to work hard on the back end of that to make sure it's smooth for the customer.
Yeah, I want to add to a couple of things because I think, like you say, some people will say, oh, you know, they're familiar with the journey. I mean, you can read a plethora of stuff online about what everyone should be doing, and the importance of getting to value quickly. And some might say, well, that's kind of 101. But I think it doesn't matter whether you're very basic in that area or whether you're advanced. There are certain things that you can do that are, simple tactics that work. One company that we work with, every salesperson has to ask at the point at which they are, in later stage of the sales cycle, they're asking, what is value going to look like for you guys? So once you're up and running with this, what's value going to look like for you guys at that point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it going to be? Oh, it's going to be, we're making a decision about this better, or we've saved X amount on delivering this thing over here, right? So
Right.
So if the team that is working towards that knows that in advance, that's great. I think there's also something now. I mean, I was interviewing Nick Mehta earlier this week, and he talked about because everything's so rapidly changing, he was talking about the fact that, you've got to think about your messaging like month over month, right? To everyone talking about remote working now, it's kind of like, well, I'm used to it. I've been doing it for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or however long I've been doing it, right? So there's also, I think, a degree of qualification that needs to happen on a continuous basis about, is that value statement still valid, right?
Totally.
Because it can change as the strategy of the business changes. But I think you broke that down, and totally going to steal that. We call them handovers, and we're going to stop that. We're going to call them transitions now. So totally taking that. Great tip. Now, we're a bit biased because we operate in the customer onboarding space, and we've talked about it a little bit, but just why is it so important at a tactical level and then at a strategic level? Why is the onboarding piece so key to that overall journey, do you think?
Because there's there's some neuroscience behind it, which I just recently learned as I was interviewing somebody for our podcast. But people, first impressions are very, very important, and they tend to stick. So, and once you have a first impression, you're looking to confirm that bias, whatever bias you had, whether it was really good or really bad. You're going to be looking to confirm that after that first impression was made. That's just how the human brain works. Like, we can't even control it. So for those reasons, you really have to nail that first experience. And by the way, onboarding isn't the first experience, right?
No.
Still, the marketing.
Sales is the first. Yeah, sales, marketing. Yep.
Yeah. So those are all interactions with our brand. So I'd say onboarding really begins with those things. And this is, again, why lowercase customer success is really a company thing, not one department's responsibility.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm getting off track of the question you asked.
No.
But
absolutely. It's very simple, right? It's like first impressions matter. And if you're playing catch up, then you're always looking to rebuild credibility, and that's exhausting when you've got to do it at scale, right?
That's right.
So
I've had customers where, I remember back in my early days as a VP of customer success, and we had a very manual process for assigning an implementation manager to a customer. And one time we had a customer that slipped through the cracks and didn't get their implementation manager assigned, right? And they
yeah,
went 3 weeks without hearing from somebody. And then we got a really nasty email, as we should have,
yeah,
saying, "Hey, I thought you guys were going to take great care of us, and you didn't."
yeah,
Um, and then, of course, we did all the apologies and everything else. But for every slip like that, that was a big one. But for every slip like that, we have to do 6 or 8 or 10 things really, really well to sort of make
yeah,
up from that. It's just like a human, it's just like your spousal relationship or your partner relationship, right?
yeah,
You can erode trust a lot faster than you can build it.
yeah. No, 100%. And okay, so let's look again at just some practical tips to finish up on. So if you were running our team at Precursive here in success, what practical things would you be coaching people on around what should we be doing and how should we be behaving right now?
In terms of onboarding specifically?
No, in terms of customer success in general. So imagine I'm the CSM, I'm in your team. How should we be at this point in time, given this new remote reality? How should we be
Mm,
behaving and acting
yeah.
and working?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the simple and maybe I hope obvious thing is that just increased level of empathy. In my opinion, the customer success community hasn't ever really had a problem with empathy. That's sort of built into who we are,
Yep,
as humans, which is what
yep,
makes us good for this. But I think a little bit more strategically, maybe on the micro strategy is you really want to think about prioritizing your accounts right now, whether that's across your whole team or within your patch if you're a CSM.
yep,
Prioritize by need. We've talked about the buckets that people are in. They're either right now thriving, striving, or surviving. Right?
yep,
There's some companies that need an increased level of support from us because this has been a catalyst for their business, and they're growing fast, and they're going to remember us by how we supported them in that growth at this time. There are some people that are retooling. We put them in the striving bucket. They're retooling. They're taking this opportunity to retrench, get some process in place that they may not have had before, and you can be a really good strategic support system for them, right? As
yep,
long as they're working on the processes that involve you.
yep,
Um, and then the third bucket, surviving. These are the people that are in retail or travel that are literally, they're halfway out of business right now because
yep,
they don't have customers and they don't have a revenue flowing. So those are the people that it's going to be a little more difficult to get on the phone. We want to let them know we're there for them, but we don't
yep,
expect anything. We don't expect to talk to them. So we just sort of put them, in a nurture bucket and
yep,
let's wait and see what happens. So very tactically, I think you can sort your accounts in that way
mm,
and really prioritize your efforts there. I think also something that we're even trying to do with not only with our customers but with the industry we serve, which is the B2B SaaS tech customer success space, is build community. Just build community amongst your
yep,
customers and even your people who are not your customers. Have them share ideas. Be the facilitator. You don't have to have all the answers right now.
yep,
I
yep,
think CSMs have a really unique opportunity in that they get to see a lot of different companies, how they operate, what processes they put in place. They see the best practices. So connect those dots. Like
mm,
the example I gave a few minutes ago,
yep,
connect a customer who's doing something really well and in a similar situation to another customer who is doing really well or needs that same kind of process support and help. You don't have to have all the answers. And sometimes you get more, you will be perceived better by not trying to give an answer that you're not in the seat to give, and
mm.
connecting the customer with somebody who is. So build community is another thing that we're seeing a lot of right now.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Jay. Listen, it's been wonderful having you on. Really appreciate it. Um, I think a lot of people will have taken many things away from this that they can use in their daily lives right now. So thanks ever so much. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Well, I hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and looking forward to seeing people get back to work
Yeah.
and starting to buy things again. And so,
Yeah.
but good for you guys in your business, and looking forward to staying in touch with you as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks,
All the
John.
best. Bye.
Bye.